Hey YouTube, just wanted to do a short video here talking about bike pads for mountain biking specifically. I got into mountain biking, or I should say I got back into mountain biking around COVID time, so about 3 years ago, 3.5. Um, and I just wanted to give kind of an overview of what I think about the bike pads that I've used and just bike pads in general. And yeah, I'll just give you kind of a history here of how I started with bike pads. So first off, I want to start with this Bodyprox brand. Um, this brand is actually kind of focused more on like braces for like recovering from injuries and whatnot, but they also sell some pads. And when I was first starting to get a bit more serious about mountain biking, I still wasn't really thinking about pads, and I think I may have had a fall either right before I got pads or maybe like right after I got these. But yeah, I got these specifically because they're um, really comfortable. Like you don't really notice they're there, and like they're easy to wash and they're easy to climb with and just general trail riding. Um, and the protection is decent. It's not amazing. It's really just like a kneecap protector and kind of like an elbow protector for your arm. You can see mine are pretty beat up. This one specifically, you can tell I took a spill or two. And sometimes this is just like these get worn from like rubbing up against rock, or maybe you snagged it on something on your bike, something like that, or a tree branch. Um, but anyway, the kind of reasoning behind these pads is like, well, it's better than nothing. I've probably had about, let's say, 4 or 5 total falls, and luckily none of them were terrible. Um, but I gotta tell you, in a couple of those falls, these pads have saved my butt. And so I ride with pads now on pretty much every ride. Like maybe if it's a super easy green, I might skip. Or if I forgot them and it's an easy trail, I might skip, but that's really rare. I just keep them washed, keep them in my bin for all my bike gear, and so it's just part of my routine now. So yeah, I started with this Bodyprox brand and was happy with those, but then I started looking at like harder trails, but also like bike parks like Trestle, and I was like, oh, maybe I need more armor, right? So I like got this pair from G-Form, which you probably have all heard of. They're kind of more mainstream for bike pads, and I would say the armor is pretty solid. Like I think this protection actually hardens up the harder the impact, and so you can see, at least compared to the Bodyprox, you get a little bit more coverage on the sides of the kneecap, which is appreciated, but the padding is pretty thin in comparison everywhere else. And kind of my other issue with these pads, which frankly I've probably only worn them like half a dozen times, these kind of slide all over the place, both on my arms and my legs. Um, so yeah, a little bit more coverage for like the elbow. You can see here, definitely for the kneecap, but not too much. A little bit lower on the kneecap here, and a little bit higher, but pretty similar coverage area when you really break it down. But I would assume these would probably take hits a little bit better, but because they're so uncomfortable to wear day to day, and I just can't keep them in place, they're either sliding down or just just sliding all over the place, and I have to keep adjusting. I don't really wear these now. Looking back, when I bought these, I think when I was reading the reviews, everyone was saying to go with a size down than you normally would wear. I did not do that. These are like a medium. And so that's probably where I went wrong. But I don't know. I typically will go medium on almost everything, and it always works. So I just went with these. But let me know in the comments. If you've got G-form and they never move on you, then maybe it's just the size. So I'd be willing to maybe give a smaller pair a shot at some point. I think they've probably got even better stuff because these are a couple years old. So yeah, that's pretty much it about the G-form. And then I kind of kept it with the Bodyprox over time as the old ones got beat up. And they did change the design a little bit, not too much. The pads were a little bit better on the newer version. These pads seem to be a little bit beefier. And then on the elbow, these are actually a little bit longer and you get a little bit more coverage area. So that's good. So I've actually bought like 2 more pairs of these Bodyprox. So I'm up to 3 now, including the originals, which I still use in the rotation, but I pretty much only use these on the easier trails. But again, I like these Bodyprox because you can just throw them in the wash and then they're good to go. So the main reason I have multiple pairs, is that I can keep a pair clean at all times. After a ride, toss them in. Even if I don't do laundry right away, I still have a couple spare sets of pads. And so that doesn't stop me from riding. And so, what prompted me to do this video? Well, again, I've been using the Bodyprox for about 3 years. So wanted to just kind of give my rating of these, for what they are for day-to-day riding, especially green and blue trails. I think they're more than adequate, and they're cheap, and they're wash friendly, and they're comfortable to ride. Protection's decent, and frankly, they saved my butt on a ride. My most recent ride, I was riding some black technical stuff at Hall Ranch, which is a very popular trail here, the Lower Bitterbrush Trail. And I decided to ride on my fat bike just to change it up. I like to underbike sometimes and just change up the experience. And yeah, I took a tumble on one of the rocks, and it could have been much worse, but my leg is still kind of healing up, kind of bruised up. Nothing too bad, but my big bruise is exactly where my pads were. So if I didn't have the pads, it would have been much worse. Honestly, even with the pads, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to stand on my right leg. And luckily it was fine. I was able to ride the rest of the trail after a breather. But if I didn't have these pads, I think I would have been in really rough shape. And I'm sure a lot of you could attest to that. But yeah, this is kind of how far I've gotten. I do have better armor, chest armor, rib cage armor for the bike park. Obviously these are just elbow and knee pads, but I have kind of upped the ante on that, and I've got a full face as well for the bike park. But I am curious, do you guys use pads? I would assume a lot of you don't, based on what I've seen on the trails, and that's fine. I might just be more paranoid, but better be safe than sorry, especially if it's comfortable. But I'm kind of curious. I'm still on the lookout for some, better protection better protection than this, that's still going to be really easy to ride with on every single ride. Climbs, no climbs, hot, cold, whatever the conditions. I would love to find pads that maybe even go a step further and have a little bit more protection. I know you're limited, right, because of the range of motion with your knees and stuff and the legs, and your arms. But I feel like there's probably some better pads out there that kind of accomplish the same thing. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you have any strong recommendations or other brands to look at. I just don't want, for the bike park, I'm okay with bulkier pads because you're not doing as any climbing really. But for black diamond trails that you still have to climb, I don't want anything bulky. That is the main thing. And so far, these Bodyprox have been real good for that. So yeah, check them out. I know they're on Amazon, but you could probably buy direct. You could probably buy on plenty of other websites. real reasonable, and they seem to be holding up pretty good. Definitely have some marks and holes in a few of the pairs, but honestly, if you just buy a set of these every so often, for your day-to-day, I think you'd be good to go. Anyway, that's it for now on pads. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next one. Later.